Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Think there's too much information in your life? Today, Ross Dawson will show us how to use all that information to make better decisions. Ross, thanks for being with us today.
It's a great pleasure, Bill.
Ross, you've written a book, Thriving on Overload. That's probably the most pertinent topic we've had, and honestly, right on the button, because I think we all see that today. Have we reached our limit on how much information we're able to handle?
Well, the basic situation here is that our brains are limited. We have finite cognitive capacities, and we live in a world where essentially, for all intents and purposes, there's unlimited information. So we have finite brains in an infinite information world. And this was the case a long time ago. I, in fact, first wrote an article called Information Overload Problem or Opportunity 25 years ago. And at the time, that was already information overload. Now it's safe to say there's plenty more. So we will have more and more and more information. Our brains are still as limited as they were in the past. But what we can do is learn how to do that as well as possible. This is the foundation for success today. In a world with unlimited information, those that are better at being able to take that and create value from that are the ones that will lead more successful, happier lives.
And, of course, that certainly makes sense. I'm sure back in 1970, someone said, there's just too much information, magazines, radio, and this new thing, TV and color TV. And now we're looking at it, and we have a watch that has probably more information than major computers did 25 years ago. We have the phone on our hip, which can take pictures and audios, videos, anything else we want. And, of course, besides that, we have anywhere we go. There's a TV on. There's a radio in our car. We're seemingly never without an information flow. And, of course, bad information and bad news sells. So if there's an accident or a tragedy, the world wants us to know that immediately. Does this have an effect on our health and our well-being?
Absolutely. This really shapes our world. Whatever experiences we have, whatever comes into our mind shapes the way in which we are thinking. And the majority of people wake up in the morning and the first things they see is, as you say, horrible things. So bad news happens quickly, good news happens slowly, as in, good, positive change. And so if you're reporting the news, you want to obviously say, well, what's happened in the last 24 hours? It's usually bad as opposed to something particularly good, unless it's a baby's being born. But at the same time, it's also what attracts people's attention. It's just reality. If we see an accident, we tend to look at these things. So we do need to have some discipline and some structure to be able to choose, to recognize the information that comes in shapes who we are, shapes our experience, shapes the way that we think. So this is the single way in which we can make ourselves happier, weller, more positive, is to have some kind of a control or to choose the information that comes in and also choose the information that can teach us how that we can be healthier.
And I go back to the title of your book. I was thinking you could have used various different combinations of words, but thriving on overload, not suffering, not getting by or just existing with it and avoiding anxiety and perhaps all the other mental conditions that might come with it. But you started to say it right there. Your book is based on the premise that our actual identities and our destiny is formed by our relationship. That's an interesting word. I had never thought of it of a relationship with information. Can you go a little further into that?
Certainly. I mean, we have a relationship with money, and some people have a positive relationship with money or a negative relationship with money. We have a relationship, arguably with our houses. We have a relationship with obviously the people in our lives, those that we love and those we don't love us quite as much. And we also have a relationship with information, and that relationship can be either destructive, as in, we feel overwhelmed by it. It feels like it's a destructive relationship. and we're not treating the information the right way, and it's not treating us the right way. Or you can have a positive, constructive relationship with information where we recognize that in there's extraordinary things of beauty, of value, of things that can help us, and that we have an attitude, positive attitude towards the information, which in turn we find that it treats us in a way which is good for us. So it's these are relationships, and it's around, fundamentally starts from our attitude.
I can tell you that one of the things I do, I got so tired of seeing bad news continually. And of course, on the TV, we can get the updates continually on our cell phone, etc., that I now make it a practice before going to bed. I watch comedy shows, and I will not watch the news because there's nothing I can do to affect something that happened around the world, whether it's a flood, a shooting, or just an accident or an event of nature. But at least I can control watching a show, which makes me happy or laugh. And at that point, I go to sleep. And I'm actually not burdening my mind. That's what I do. I don't know if others do it or if it works for someone else, but it seems to work for me. Is there any estimate of how much time we spend on information that is literally, I guess, wasted, junk, not beneficial in almost any way to us?
Well, it depends on the individual.
Okay, fair enough.
Their information habits. But I suppose the point which I would make is that there's what I would call positive value information and negative value information. So it's not as if information either has, some value or no value. Most information has negative value. First thing is if it takes our time without giving us enough value for the time that we've spent with it. And, that's already a pretty high threshold. Then the other things can make it negative value. It could be incorrect. It could be actively misleading. It could be depressing. It could essentially detract from our quality of life. So probably for most people, the majority of the information we engage with is negative value. It's just not giving us enough value for our time. So that means that what the value that does have positive information, we need to make the most of that, to make sure spend enough time with that we are fully engaged with that. We take as much value from that to be able to learn more, to become more expert, to be able to think more effectively, to be able to make better decisions. So these are the choices that we make. And probably there are some people where basically just about everything is wasted or negative or detracting from their lives. And there are information masters, as I call them, where, they're still coming across information which isn't adding value to them, but most of the information they engage with and the way they engage with that adds enormously to their lives and what it is they want to achieve.
That's a very interesting way of putting it, and I think right on the button, because what could be positive or negative to me, positive if I was to look at a fashion book, it has no real relevance to me except the models might be nice looking. But to someone who's a manufacturer, a tailor, a designer, a photographer, that might be right in their line of expertise, their work, and it could have great relevance. So I like the way you put that.
Absolutely.
Do you find there's any connection between people who are, I guess, more successful in the world, however we would relate success, and how they're able to focus or use their time or handle information?
I would say it's almost a direct correlation today in a world where just about every decision we make is driven by information. And if you're, for example, a sports star, probably a little bit less. But then again, even sports stars today are sort of using enormous amounts of information about their own performance, about what other people are doing, how their competitors are working, so on. So even in things which are not necessarily obviously information intensive are still a lot of information is required. So today, in a world which is awash with information, the world is moving faster and faster. That those who are better at dealing with information are the most successful. So point to a successful person, they're probably pretty good at the way in which they manage their time and their attention and how it is they deal with information. So what amazes me, though, is that this is not taught. They don't teach us at schools. They don't teach us at colleges. They don't teach us in our workplace. But this is the foundation for success today. And so this is really, I think, important message we do need to shift to be able to understand that this is a foundational capability, dealing better with information, and it is a skill we can learn and develop and get better at. And that's going to essentially be the foundation for the success that we have.
That thought hit me just as you were answering that question. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was thinking of students in school, etc. Naturally, they want to do what's fun and more relaxing. They may not be interested in learning chemistry or algebra at a particular time of day. But at least if they use their time learning something that would be interesting to them, maybe they're more interested in geometry or carpentry or auto mechanics, things like that. At least if time could be directed, and let's say something as little as half an hour or 45 minutes a day, at the end of the year, what a vast amount of knowledge would be coming into them and could be used in something they're actually interested in. Ross, at this point in the show, we want to take a brief break and let our audience know that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Ross Dawson, Dawson. His book is Thriving on Overload, The 5 Powers for Success, and we love that word. Ross, where can we get the book, and is there a website where we can find out more information?
Well, hopefully the old adage, wherever good books are sold, applies. So online or physical bookshop, or you should be able to buy it or order anywhere, or if not, go to the next one and you can find it. On thrivingonoverload.com, you can find pathways to buy the book online. And there's also a lot of other resources. There is also a podcast. There is actually an online course for those that want to develop their skills in the area, and a lot of other content and resources. So we're trying to do what we can to provide the tools for people to thrive on overload, and all at that website, thrivingonoverload.com.
As you were answering again that question, something just came to me. I'm just wondering, who are the people who kind of reach out to you the most? Is it business people? Is it people in a specific area? Or another market that I was thinking of, is it parents who say, wait, I do want to see my child get into a very good school in the future or be successful in life? How can they handle all this information better? Which group reaches out to you, or do you get it from all of them?
Well, because of my background and because of the companies I tend to work with, it does tend to be professionals, financial people in finance, other business people. But the book does seem to be sparking a response in, as you say, parents and indeed students and those who are, recognizing that these are fundamental skills, ones which will be the foundation of their success.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think you have, as I said, the great title and the great subject for the world we're in today. Now, right in your title, there's the subtitle, The 5 Powers for Success. And I know you mentioned that early on in your book. So can you tell us what those are and how we should look at them?
Certainly. So the first power is purpose. And we need to know why it is we want information at all. What is it that is useful to us? And because that we understand the purpose of our lives, of our careers, what it is we want to achieve. And so this answering of why do I want this information? What purpose will it serve? And that has to be the starting point. That is the center of being able to deal well with information. The second power is framing. And this is where we take all of the many different pieces of information that we come across and pull them together into a framework, which is the foundation for our knowledge, for our expertise. When we become an expert in any subject, not because we know lots of information, it's because we'll piece that together into a way of thinking, into a way of understanding, to see how the things come together in a framework. So there's different structures that we can use visualizations, and the building of frameworks is the foundation for our understanding. And then to be able to see, well, if I see some new information, where does that fit within my frameworks? Or if it doesn't fit, then I can develop my frameworks, my knowledge, and my expertise. The third power is filtering. And so this is being able to discern the difference between the information that is valuable for us and that is not valuable for us, that is useless, that is destructive. And we can start to build a portfolio of information sources. So, for example, just as the way we have a portfolio of investments, we can have a portfolio of information sources that are diverse, that are the ones which serve our purpose and be able to provide the information that we want to build the areas we want to be an expert in, and to be able to get better at being able to take these new pieces of information and determine what it is that should be coming into our thinking, our knowledge. The fourth power, which is a critical one, is attention. So it's not as if we're either focused or not focused, or paying attention or not paying attention. There are, in fact, many different types of attention, which we use for information. So one is just simply scanning. So say, all right, these are my information sources. I will scan through them to be able to see what is it that I might spend a bit more time with because it's interesting and relevant. But that's different from when you say, I will now assimilate that. I'll make that part of my thinking, part of my mental models. And so that's where you spend some time. There's a different mode. We say, all right, I'd like to take this in. I wanted to find what's useful in here. I might take a few notes. I'll pull that in. And there's a number of other different attention modes where we're exploring for information, or, for example, one is deep diving, and that's critical. We need to take some time, hopefully, possibly daily, but certainly weekly, to carve out a periods of time when we have no notifications, no distractions. Nobody will interrupt us unless it's the end of the world, and we can just deep dive into a space and develop our power of attention. And one of the other attention modes, which is critical and which many people don't recognize, is regenerating. We can't keep focused and attention all the time. We need to regenerate, and that's often not best done by watching a streaming show, for example. It's best done being in nature, being outside, being able to broaden our attention. And the fifth power is synthesis. This is taking all of the pieces, connecting the dots, being able to make sense of all the world. So a lot of us are taught in schools analysis. We break things down into smaller and smaller pieces. Synthesis is the opposite. It's pulling all of the pieces together to see the whole. And this is the master skill today. And particularly when we have artificial intelligence and machine learning getting better at very specific tasks, what they will not be able to do is that very human role of synthesis. This is the ultimate human capability, pulling all the pieces together to see the whole. So each of these five powers fit together. So purpose and the framing and filtering and attention and synthesis, all of these together are the foundations to be able to thrive on overload and to build deep knowledge, to make better decisions, to see opportunities, to be able to create better things in a world where, rather than seeing overwhelming information, we see as much information as we could possibly want to achieve our objectives.
I found that very interesting because while you were talking, I was thinking there's one, this almost sounds like a mathematical equation, what you have to do, or it's relatively simple instructions, like if you were fixing a car, steps 1 to 5 or 1 to 6 or 1 to 7, something like that. But I was also thinking, gee, if this is a recipe, if you're making a cake and instead of sugar you put in salt, or you just leave out the sugar, you're not going to have much of a cake, and it's not going to sell very well in the bakery because cakes are meant to be relatively sweet and more of a dessert item. So there really are rules, and you're telling us them, for dealing with this information. And again, if we can pick up, I would imagine just even 15 minutes to 30 minutes a day, like exercise, we could probably accomplish a lot more if it's our own business or handle our own affairs, meaning checkbooks, life decisions, etc., much better just by reading your book and following some of the basic information.
That's the intention, to be as useful as possible. But this is the point is, all of us are either, good or bad or very good or not very good at these capabilities, and all of us can improve.
Well, that's always good news. And in fact, my next question was, is this almost like a sport? We could learn the first time we hit a tennis ball, but if we sat with someone and practiced the swing and the footwork and all of the other points that tennis players know, I'm guessing you get up to a certain level, at least within your level of competence. If people read your book and started out and started to do some of the, I'm going to guess, some exercises with it, or followed your website, can they grow in using the information they have to a significant degree?
So, yeah, very substantial degree. Yeah. So in my book, there are exercises at the end of every chapter. So this is to be able to put that into practice. And so this is where there's a number of things you can put in place. So there might be some habits to change. So one example, very simple example, is saying, all right, I will choose what news sources I will look at every day. And most people already have a pretty regular set. And then you will simply say, this, I will get a fixed period of time to look at those headlines. It might be 15 minutes, whatever it might be. And I will spend not less than that time, and I will spend not more than that time. And I will not go back and look at those headlines again until, next day or whatever it is you choose. So you're making a habit, and you're being clear and structured around being able to do that. So that's just one thing you can simply put into practice. You've done, and you might improve that over time. But there are some other things which you can get better over time. For one, it may be sort of continue to refine the sources that you use. One of the most is being able to increase your powers of attention. And there are a number of practices that we can use to increase our power of attention. There's also some skills we can develop to be better at synthesis, to be able to connecting the dots and pulling things together. So this is a journey of being able to do a few specific things, but also develop our capabilities over time.
The more I'm listening to you, the more I'm thinking you have a bestseller over here. And any young parent who is looking for their child to be successful in life, I would think they'd want to read this so they could kind of work this into the child's growth and, perhaps getting them using their time more effectively and more to their benefit. Rather, obviously they should have playtime, etc., but using it to their best interest and their best future interest. Ross, once again, we want our audience to know that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Ross Dawson, Dawson. This wonderful book we're talking about is Thriving on Overload, The 5 Powers for Success in a World of Exponential Information. That magic word, success, and I think we all agree there's a lot of information out there. How can we best use it to help our success? Ross, where can we get the book, and tell us about the website?
You can get the book hopefully in any bookstore, either on the shelves or be able to order it, certainly on Amazon or any online bookstore. If you go to my website for the book, thrivingonoverload.com, there is a section where you can choose where to buy it, as well as extensive other resources.
And you were mentioning about how we can use the information. Before the show, I talked about a story in your book. You mentioned a gentleman, I think in one of the anecdotes, you talked about how he actually used all the information he had and put together a lifestyle. He was over 300 pounds, I think. And
yes,
you can tell it better, but he used, if I remember, something about the relationship between water and his smoking habits, and lost quite a bit of weight as a result of that.
Yeah, so this is an important application of information is for our well-being and our health. And one of the obvious ways is that if we have a better relationship with information, we will feel better and we will be healthier. But the other is information about our health. So we can learn. So, for example, what our diet or our exercise, or we may have a particular malady, or our loved ones may be sick in some way. So we need to do our research. We need to get information, find out what new data is. And this is one of our purposes in information, is to be healthier. So we can define our information habits. But today, one of the new areas of information we have is information about our own body. So many people have fitness trackers, or wearing digital watches, which give us a great deal of information about our body. And there's more and more ways in which we can get information about ourselves. So that's just information, but we can use that information well. And that's what Chris Dancy did, where he recognized that he was not a healthy person in his habits or his body and his weight. And so he started to look at the data of which we captured about him, around everything from what he ate and when he ate it and how much he slept and what he drank, and he smoked, which way too much at the time. And just one of the patterns which he noticed was that when he drank a lot of water, he smoked less. So he said, okay, well, let me make sure that I'm drinking enough water. And that he immediately smoked less. That had a positive impact in terms of his appetite for healthy types of food. And he started to again sort of see the data, see the information about his own body, which started to tell him, these are the things I can do to be able to have this positive cycle of eating better, sleeping better, having less destructive habits and exercising more. He found this correlation between these things, which made him more likely to want to exercise. What exercise at which times of day were better for his health, because he had data. So not everyone would want to go as deep as Chris did in being able to monitor all that information, but we can quite simply get information about ourselves and our habits, which inform us in taking action better to be healthier.
And I think that's a great example, because physically we can see, as the story you told, someone who goes from 300 plus pounds to under 200, and I think in the book it was said about 175. That's a great visual example of what you can do by just using the information correctly. And certainly it had to help his health, I'm sure, because he seemed to be going in the wrong direction before that. So I think just on a personal level, it shows us how that information can be used. And of course, if we can use it in our job, if we can use it for finances, if we can use it to help others, that's even better. I love a statement you made in your book, and you talk about the fact that we have the power to choose how we deal with information. And I'd like you to talk on that a minute, because I think there's a lot of people out there trying to get that power away from us and sneak in information that we really don't want. When I go to the computer, when I look at my watch, when I look at my phone. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we unfortunately live in an economy where value is going to whoever can capture your attention. So the rise of social media, I mean, it has had some benefits, but what it has basically become is a industry where they use the latest research and the smartest people in the world and the biggest artificial intelligence to hijack our attention. That's what they are trying to do. That's what they get money from. And so this is pretty tough for us to be able to deal with that and confront that. And we have to make a deliberate choice to say, I will control my attention. I will control the information rather than letting someone else suck me into their mission to make more money or whatever it may be.
Well, I'm going to nominate. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to nominate you to help me control that information, because you literally the man who wrote the book Thriving on Overload. It's by our guest Ross Dawson, Dawson. Ross, once again, I'd like you to give us the website real quick.
ThrivingOnOverload.com.
Ross, thank you so much for being with us today. You've been very instructive, and I think this is a book that definitely our audience will love, should read, and will definitely get us much more success than we would be getting without it, and also alert us who to watch out for, who's trying to pick off our attention and information capacity. I'd like our audience to know that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.